This week, I've been talking to the British novelist Jonathan Coe, who I think is brilliant, and he's been back in Vienna promoting his new novel, The Proof of My Innocence. It's been translated into German here, Der Beweis meiner Unschuld. And it's a very funny book, but it's also a very political book about how British politics has moved to the right and the forces that have moved the right further to the right, which is, of course, incredibly relevant for what's happening in the UK at the moment. There was 100,000 people on the streets of London in what has been described as a far-right rally. I wanted to know from Jonathan, first of all, whether he'd been surprised or shocked by that massive demonstration.
Yeah, I was surprised and shocked by the scale of the demonstration, by the social range of the people who were there. I mean, there are a lot of the kind of people who you would characterize as far-right thugs, who you would expect to see on a demonstration like this, but there were a lot of people you would not put in that category. I was shocked by the presence by satellite of Elon Musk, who was giving his very provocative and very uninformed views about what is happening in the UK. And Britain suddenly has a far-right problem, which is really, it's been building for a few years, but essentially it's a new development in our politics.
Where do you think the roots of this move to a more extreme version of right-wing thinking has come from? Your new novel, The Proof of My Innocence, is kind of about the germination of that, and it predates Elon Musk's prominence, I suppose.
Yeah, you can talk about where it's come from the top down, if you like, in the sense that it's been incubated in the conventional political parties, in the increasing radicalisation of the Conservative Party since Brexit, through think tanks, through legacy media organisations like GB News, which is a very right-wing channel and is now one of the most watched news channels in Britain. Or you can talk about the more difficult question, which is where is it coming from the bottom up? Why are people turning to this? What kind of desperation is it that they're feeling? What kind of anger is it that they're feeling? Is it just cynicism with conventional politicians, with career politicians? The second question is the more difficult one, and the one I don't have the answer to at the moment. I'm hoping that when people look more closely at the policies of Reform UK, Nigel Farage's party, they will think again. At the moment, he's riding a great wave of enthusiasm, which I think is basically derives from cynicism about establishment politicians, and also some bad missteps, I have to say, by Keir Starmer's government in its first year.
There's been a couple of prime ministers in recent years that seem more like characters from a novel than from real life. Last time we met, you spoke about Boris Johnson and his likeness to a 1970s version of James Bond. Your new novel focuses on a prime minister that many abroad might have missed coming and going. Liz Truss in power for a matter of days, but quite a character. Why did you focus on her for this novel?
Well, because Liz Truss is quite an extreme, has quite extreme views. And briefly, owing to a sort of hiccup in our electoral system, the members of her own party, largely the elderly members of her own party, I have to say, so a few tens of thousands of people voted for her as their leader, and so she became Prime Minister of the country because Boris Johnson had been forced to resign. So it was a very unexpected development, and a very alarming development, really, which made you feel that our sort of liberal consensus, if you like, which both parties of the left and right have broadly belonged to, was much more fragile than we thought.
And final question, Elon Musk, the tech bros, they have a lot of power to influence public opinion, the way people think. A novelist, perhaps it's harder to reach people, but what do you think the value of a novel in this social media inundated day is?
Well, a novel of mine, a really successful novel of mine, would only reach hundreds of thousands of people, whereas, Elon Musk, I think he had 200 million followers on Twitter, something like that. So the numbers don't really stack up. But we do what we can to counter what is coming from one side, and just to tell stories which are as truthful as possible, really, and help people to understand the times that we live in and the times that we've recently passed through, because recent history becomes ancient history very, very quickly these days.
Thank you so much.